Thanks, Dylan. I will now take questions from the room. Would you like to go ahead?
I'm Mr. Miller, Mackenzie Gray with CTV News. In June in Nunavut, an RCMP officer hit an Indigenous man who was clearly drinking. He could barely stand, hit him with his car. Then after that, 5 RCMP officers tackled the man. The Ottawa Police Service did an investigation to this and determined that what happened there was lawful. At the time when you were asked about it, you said, quote, "A car door is not a proper police tactic. It's disgraceful, dehumanizing, and a violent act." So my question to you is, how can an act that you've called dehumanizing not lead to charges in this situation?
Mackenzie, I saw what I saw.
Okay. How can Indigenous people trust you on a day where you're backing down from a major commitment about boil water advisories, and they see a situation like this in Nunavut, where if the tables were turned, almost certainly, if an Indigenous man hit a police officer with his car, that man would have been charged and been put in jail. What do you say to people in Indigenous communities in Nunavut and Canadians across the country about perceived injustices in this situation?
Look, every act of racism and expressions of systemic racism are disgraceful. We've seen, I mentioned it earlier about systemic racism in the healthcare system. Indigenous communities, while it was a shock to Canadians across the country earlier on in the year, and these images continue to be a shock, it wasn't a surprise to Indigenous people because they continue to experience it. It's a lived experience for many people that have had negative interactions. And I would stress to say that these are situations where people are at their most vulnerable, where their physical integrity is compromised, whether it's at the hands of a police officer that are supposed to protect them, or whether it's at the hands of a healthcare person, whether it's a doctor or a nurse or paramedic. Instances of racism in these situations and systemic racism can kill. And this is a reform that we've undertaken to do. You read it as I did in the throne speech, and we will continue to do it. Continue to hold those who serve and protect Canadians to account, making sure that we reform the RCMP when it comes to our jurisdiction, ensuring that Indigenous communities have police services that are an essential service. And I look forward to working with Minister Blair to ensure that gets done. I will not, I can't exclude that these events will occur again. There's a lot of work to be done in the police service systems in this country, and we'll continue to do so. Anytime you see these events, and I'm someone who does believe in independent reviews of facts, we do need to get to the bottom of these things. But as you mentioned, it further undermines the trust that Indigenous communities in particular find is still quite thin with respect to our police services.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Next question.